You may not realize it right away, but aging has a way of changing more than just your body. It can shift your habits, reshape your mind, and nudge your spirit in directions you never quite expected. Some of these changes are beautiful: greater wisdom, deeper patience, more gratitude for the small things. But others, they creep in quietly, like weeds in a garden. And if we don't catch them early, they can take root and slowly chip away at the joy, connection, and peace we all deserve in our later years. There are certain habits many older dogs develop that no one really talks about, not because they're shameful, but because they're subtle, common, human. We all have blind spots, and unless someone gently holds up the mirror, we may never notice what's grown in the corners of our lives. So if you've found yourself feeling a bit more irritable, a bit more isolated, or a bit less curious about life than you used to be, this conversation is for you. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. Noticing these habits doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're still capable of growth. And that, my friend, is something to be proud of. Let's start with something simple but deeply impactful: complaining. It's so easy to fall into, isn't it? You wake up with a new ache, the news feels overwhelming, your grandkids don't call, the grocery prices have gone up again. Before long, you're not just venting, you're living in a constant loop of pointing out what's wrong. And here's the hard truth. Chronic complaining doesn't just bring you down, it pushes others away. It creates an atmosphere where people feel like they have to walk on eggshells, or worse, avoid you altogether. You may not even notice it happening, but over time you might feel lonelier and blame the loneliness on others when really it started with the tone of your words. Now imagine this: what if, instead of focusing on what's wrong, you made it a habit to point out one thing that's right? One small pleasure, one moment of beauty, one kind act. You'd be surprised how quickly your mood changes and how magnetic your presence becomes. People are drawn to warmth, and the good news is it's a habit anyone can build at any age. Another sneaky habit that tends to show up more in our later years is oversharing. It usually comes from a place of wanting to connect, of wanting to be heard, and that's completely natural, but sometimes without realizing it, we start giving people more than they asked for. Conversations turn into monologues, personal stories spill out in places that don't quite fit. You might find yourself telling a stranger at the pharmacy about your cousin's knee surgery from 10 years ago, and halfway through you wonder why they look so uncomfortable. It's not that your stories aren't valuable, they are, but connection isn't just about speaking. It's also about reading the room, pausing, asking questions. When you balance your sharing with curiosity, people feel seen, not just spoken to. And that's how relationships deepen, not through volume, but through mutual care. Then there's the quiet trap of routine. As the years go on, routine can feel safe, even sacred. You sit in the same chair, you eat the same meals, you watch the same shows. Familiarity is comforting, but it can also become a cage. Without even realizing it, you start avoiding anything new. You pass up invitations, you turn down new technology, you skip the community center's painting class because you've never been artistic. But here's the truth: novelty keeps your brain alive. It sparks joy, it invites laughter, learning, and energy back into your life. It doesn't have to be grand. Try a new walking route. Order a different dessert. Listen to music from another culture. The goal isn't perfection, it's engagement. You're not done exploring this world just because you've seen more of it than most. There are still discoveries left to make. But sometimes the past feels so cozy, so known, that it's hard to be present. You find yourself constantly reminiscing, and while memories are a beautiful gift, living only in the past can rob you of today. You think back to the good old days, how things used to be. Simpler. People used to be kinder. The world felt safer. And soon it feels like nothing in the present can measure up. So you start checking out. Conversations bore you. New ideas feel like noise. You cling to what was and miss what is. The truth is, the present moment is the only one we get to shape. It's where joy happens. It's where your family still needs you, where laughter still echoes, where sunsets still paint the sky. Don't miss it. Let the past be your anchor, not your hiding place. Another habit that slips in without warning is judgment, especially toward younger generations. You might find yourself saying things like, "Kids today don't know how to work," or "back in my day we had real values," and maybe there's truth in that, But when judgment takes the lead, curiosity shuts down, and with it, so does connection. You may not understand why your granddaughter dyes her hair purple or why your grandson wants to be a content creator instead of a doctor, but you don't have to understand it to show interest. Ask, listen, smile. You don't have to agree. You just have to care enough to try. Judgment builds walls. Curiosity builds bridges. And at this stage of life, wouldn't you rather be a bridge? Now let's talk about something deeply personal, your appearance. With age, it's tempting to stop trying. You might tell yourself, what's the point? You stop dressing up, you skip a shave, you let your hair go unbrushed because, well, no one's coming over anyway. But here's the thing, self-care isn't for others, it's for you. When you look in the mirror and see someone who's still trying, still showing up, it does something powerful to your spirit. It tells your mind, I matter. And when you believe that, you walk taller, speak more kindly to yourself, and feel more connected to life. It doesn't take much. A fresh shirt, a little cologne, combing your hair. These small acts remind you and everyone around you that your story is still unfolding. You might not talk about it much, but your environment says a lot about your inner world. Over time, many older adults start holding on to more than they need. Stacked newspapers, old clothing, broken tools, paperwork from decades ago. It starts small, a drawer that won't close, a closet that's too full. But gradually the home becomes crowded with things that once mattered but no longer serve a purpose. And here's what most people don't realize. Clutter is heavy, not just physically, but emotionally. Every object carries a story, a memory, a decision you haven't made, and when it all piles up, it creates mental noise. You might feel tired without knowing why. You might avoid certain rooms or tasks because they feel overwhelming. The truth is, letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about making space for peace, for movement, for clarity. Start with one drawer, one shelf, one corner. You don't need to erase the past. You just need to give yourself room to breathe again. And while we're on the topic of health, let's talk about the medical roller coaster many people find themselves on in their later years. Some seniors become overly fixated on every new ache or symptom, going from doctor to doctor, test to test, seeking reassurance. Others do the opposite, ignoring warning signs, skipping appointments, pretending things are fine. Both extremes are born from fear. One is fear of illness, the other is fear of facing the truth. But your body deserves your attention, not your obsession. Staying proactive about your health doesn't mean panicking over every twinge, and it doesn't mean denying what needs care. It means finding a steady rhythm, taking your medications responsibly, asking questions, following through with treatment, but also knowing when to rest your mind and trust your body. You are not a machine with parts breaking down. You're a living, breathing person, and your health journey is just one part of your story, not the whole plot. Have you ever caught yourself finishing someone else's sentence or jumping in before they're done speaking? It might seem harmless, even efficient, but over time it creates a pattern where others feel rushed, unseen, maybe even dismissed. It often starts with good intentions, excitement, familiarity, or the urge to relate, but it can quickly become a habit that damages communication. When we interrupt, we send the message that our thoughts are more important than someone else's words. And the older we get, the easier it is to slip into this pattern without realizing it. We've lived long lives. We've heard it all before. We think we know where someone is going with their story, but what if we paused? What if we allowed them the space to finish, to unfold, to surprise us? There's power in patience, and there's beauty in truly listening, not to reply, but to understand. Now, let's talk about something that rarely gets acknowledged, how fear can quietly take the wheel as we age. Fear of falling, fear of driving, fear of trying something new, fear of going out at night or traveling or meeting new people. Some of that caution is earned. Life teaches us what's worth avoiding. But when fear begins to dictate your daily choices, it doesn't protect you, it shrinks you. Maybe you've stopped walking the neighborhood because of a cracked sidewalk. Maybe you turned down a dinner invitation because you didn't want to drive after dark. Maybe you haven't been to the movies in years because you're afraid of being too cold or needing the restroom too often. All these choices seem small, but together they build a smaller life. Courage doesn't mean being reckless. It means honoring your fears without letting them define you. It's okay to take precautions. It's also okay to take chances, even small ones. Courage might look like trying a new exercise class, saying yes to a road trip, striking up a conversation with someone new. Life doesn't stop being worth living just because we're older. But sometimes we have to nudge ourselves back into the world. And then there's the tension that sometimes builds between generations. You've worked hard, you've lived through so much. You've raised children, built a life, made sacrifices, and now maybe you look around and wonder if anyone really appreciates that. Maybe your children or grandchildren make choices you don't understand. Maybe they seem distracted, self-involved, less connected to the traditions that mattered to you. That kind of disconnect can turn into resentment, quiet at first, but heavy. You might find yourself muttering things like, they just don't get it, or back in my day, we wouldn't have done that. And maybe you're right, but here's something worth considering. Empathy goes both ways. The younger generation is facing a world you never had to navigate, and you carry wisdom they may not even realize they need. You don't have to agree on everything, but if you lead with frustration, the conversation ends. If you lead with empathy, it begins. Ask them about their lives. Really listen. You might not relate to their music, their jobs, or their pace, but you'll find common ground in their fears, their hopes, their desire to be understood. And maybe, just maybe, they'll start asking more about you too. Connection is never out of reach, but it does require grace. Finally, let's talk about joy, not just happiness, but joy, the lightness that comes from play, spontaneity, laughter for no reason. Somewhere along the way, many older adults start believing that joy is for the young, that being playful is childish, that fun is something you grow out of. But here's a secret. You don't have to stop laughing just because you have gray hair. You don't have to stop dancing because your knees aren't what they used to be. You don't have to stop being silly, surprising, or delighted. Joy isn't a phase of life. It's fuel for living, and without it, the days can feel long and dull, even if nothing is technically wrong. When was the last time you played a game, sang out loud, told a joke that made someone snort with laughter? When was the last time you tried something with no purpose other than to enjoy it? If it's been a while, don't worry. That spark is still there. You just have to give it air. Let yourself smile at absurd things. Say yes to the picnic. Watch the comedy instead of the news. Eat the dessert. Invite your grandkids to teach you something ridiculous. The point isn't to feel young, it's to feel alive. Maybe as you've listened to all of this, you've recognized a few of these habits in yourself, and maybe that recognition brings up some discomfort. But that's okay. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's often the first sign of change, the quiet nudge that tells you it's time to look closer at how you're living and who you've lived through decades. You've endured losses, loved deeply, built memories that could fill volumes, but growth doesn't stop because of age. It pauses when we believe we're too old to begin again. The truth is, every sunrise you see is another invitation to adjust, to soften, to unlearn what no longer serves you. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply notice. Notice when you slip into complaining. Notice when you avoid trying something new. Notice when fear is steering the wheel instead of your own hopes or intentions. Because noticing is the first step to reclaiming. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to return to yourself, to remember the parts of you that are still curious, still kind, still bold, still joyful. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. Present in your relationships, present in your community, present in your own life. And when you do that, when you truly show up for your own experience, you start to feel the shift. The heaviness lifts, the days feel lighter, the connections grow deeper. Because you're not just aging, you're evolving. You're still shaping the story of your life. And that story isn't over. If you've fallen into some of these habits, you're not broken, you're human. These behaviors often show up as protection, complaining, maybe a shield for grief. Withdrawal may be a reaction to loneliness. Fear might be the echo of a past fall or a bad experience. These habits are not failures, they're responses. But the beauty of being human is that responses can change. And when they do, so does everything else. So you may think it's too late to shift these patterns. But let me offer this. Some of the most remarkable transformations I've ever seen have come from people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s. People who dared to question the default, who chose to reach out instead of pull away, who learned how to laugh again, deeply and freely, even after years of silence. It's never too late to become softer. It's never too late to forgive someone, to clean out the attic, to show up at the senior center, to write that letter, to hug a little longer, to say, I'm sorry, or I'm proud of you, or let's start again. These small moments are the stitches that hold our lives together. And the truth is, other people notice. Your energy changes a room. Your attitude teaches your grandchildren more than any lecture ever could. Your willingness to evolve shows your peers that it's possible for them too. You may not even realize how many people are watching you quietly, hoping you'll be the one who leads the way. And sometimes the leadership isn't loud. It's a simple smile, a softened tone, a curious question instead of a sharp opinion, a pause before jumping in, a willingness to say, tell me more about that. I want to understand. That's how bridges are built. That's how healing happens. And maybe the person who needs the most compassion right now is you. You may look back and see years where you were caught in survival, years where you didn't know better, years where these habits helped you get through something painful. That's okay. Give those versions of yourself a little grace. They were doing the best they could. And now you get to decide what comes next. Maybe you'll start by cleaning out one drawer in your house or reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe you'll surprise yourself and try a new class or a new recipe or a new way of thinking. Whatever it is, start small, but start because you are still here, still breathing, still full of stories, still capable of love, still deserving of joy. And life, real, meaningful, beautiful life, doesn't belong to the young. It belongs to the willing, the ones who say, yes, I've made mistakes, but also say, yes, I can still grow. So if you've caught yourself stuck in some of these habits, let that be the turning point, not the end, not the explanation, just the moment you realize that every day you have the choice to show up differently. Be kinder than you were yesterday. Be more patient with the people around you. Be open to changing your mind. Be honest about your fears. Be bold enough to laugh at yourself. Be wise enough to let go of what no longer fits. And above all, be the kind of elder who radiates light. Not because life was easy, but because you chose again and again to meet it with love. The years ahead aren't just time passing, they're time available. Time to connect, time to make peace, time to write a new chapter. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to remember who you still are underneath all the routines and habits and expectations. You are not too far gone. You are not too stuck. You are not too late. And this life is still worth shaping.